back to what you said is trending today. President Trump traveled to Miami today to announce that he is canceling Obama's deal with Cuba. That essentially lifted the embargo on the country. Now, here are some of his remarks from earlier today. Watch.
But we will not be silent in the face of communist oppression any longer. And now that I am your president, America will expose the crimes of the Castro regime and stand with the Cuban people in their struggle for freedom. The previous administration's easing of restrictions on travel and trade does not help the Cuban people. They only enrich the Cuban regime. The outcome of last administration's executive action has been only more repression and a move to crush the peaceful democratic movement. Therefore, effective immediately, I am canceling the last administration's completely one-sided deal with Cuba.
Here with me now to discuss, live from South Florida, radio talk show host John Cardillo. John, good to see you. I just realized that I have on the same shirt as I had on when I had lunch with you in Florida last weekend. That's embarrassing, right? Anyway, John, Obama, go ahead.
No, I said it's great. I love it. It's comfortable.
It is comfortable, a little bohemian, little Southern California, little Southern Florida, and yellow. Very hard color to find. I'm always looking for yellow. Anyway, John, Obama makes a deal with Cuba during his presidency that opened back up the floodgates of American dollars flowing into Cuba. What can you tell us about the old deal and what the president now is exactly changing about it?
Well, politically, what the deal did originally was the deal basically rewarded the corrupt Castro regime, this oppressive regime. It rewarded them with American tourism, American dollars, American trade, and Castro and Cuba had to give us nothing back. There were no concessions, and there are fugitives from justice there. There are dissidents still jailed there. But Obama gave them everything they wanted, asked for nothing, same thing that he did with Iran. And the president realized how ridiculous it was, what a horrible deal it was, and he eliminated it. And Cubans in South Florida, especially in Miami, are in love with President Trump today.
Yeah, it seems so. It seems like a positive move for America. So why the negative sentiment from some on the left today? Is it that they like, this humanitarian atrocities that have happened in Cuba and they want America to keep supporting them?
President Trump could revive a baby on national television that was choking, and they would find fault. They would find fault with him. Okay, that's why.
That was a great way to answer that question. All right, John, I saw a tweet from you today talking about fugitives and taking refuge in Cuba. You said Barack Obama never once demanded Chesimard's return. Chesimard was an associate of Bill Ayers. He named his son after her co-conspirator. John, what's the story there? This is a little mysterious for some of us.
Okay, this is interesting. So Joanne Chesimard murdered a state trooper back in the 70s in New Jersey, a New Jersey state trooper named Warner Forrester. She broke out of jail and fled, was on the lam in the United States for a couple of years, then fled down to Cuba, where she's been living openly in Havana, interviewed by foreign journalists for the last 30-some-odd years, being protected by the Cuban regime. She wasn't under indictment or pending trial. She had been convicted of the murder of Trooper Forrester and shooting his partner. Now, interesting little side bit, her husband, boyfriend, whatever, co-conspirator, Zayd Shakur, Z-A-Y-D Shakur, Bill Ayers, Obama's mentor, named his son Zayd after this guy. So Obama was a disciple of the radicals that spurned Joanne Chesimard. She goes by the name that the leftists love, Assata Shakur, but her real name is Joanne Chesimard. And not only is she a convicted felon, a cop killer on the lam, she's on the FBI's most wanted terrorist lists for the last half decade.
You really have to ask yourself, John, what is wrong with these people that they don't want this sort of justice carried out, right, John? In terms of what this will really do for the Cuban people, because that's what President Trump repeated over and over. But we've heard other presidents repeat like things. And so in terms of that, because this doesn't really make it so Americans can't travel there, it doesn't make it so Americans can't do business there, they can't do business specifically with government-owned businesses, but it may be a little hard to tell sometimes who really owns what and where the government has its fingers. So in real terms, John, what difference do you think today's action will make for the Cuban people?
Well, look, probably very little. It's more symbolic because Europeans can travel to Cuba. So Cuba's always gotten a taste of Western tourism dollars. Americans have been able to travel through the Bahamas, through the Cayman Islands, through Mexico to get to Cuba. So there's still a ways to get there. I mean, yeah, you could run into a little trouble when you come back, but it's been a destination for Germans and Italians and British, for decades. So it's more symbolic. There were certain entities in Cuba that felt, okay, we've got the cash cow of Miami 170 some odd miles away. This is going to be great. They were gearing up. They may have been people that, harken back to the Batista days, pre-Castro. This shut it down for them. So I think what this has really done is more of a political and intelligence community move. It's gotten a group of people that thought they were going to start making money a little upset with the Castros again. And if things go well, maybe they're deposed and a democracy flourishes there.
It's interesting. I'm not sure how I think that they are going to react, this Cuban regime, because they said that they were anxious to talk to the president, that, they wanted to have some meetings. The president always shooting far, we know, in his art of the deal at first. But they also did this very unusual military display right after the president was elected. So how do you think this goes? What's your prediction?
Well, I mean, I think, it's laughable that Cuba would try to flex military muscle against the United States. I mean, they're afraid of our Coast Guard cutters. Their patrol boats flee away from them, and our air bases down here in Florida could decimate their country in about 11 minutes. And so I think what's going to happen is Raul Castro is going to have to decide, does he want to be hated not just by the general populace, but also by the elite at this point, because he won't give up a couple of fugitives from justice, and he won't relax these draconian restrictions that have been in place for half a century? Mm-hmm. Or is he going to continue down this path? I mean, the guy's in his 80s, so he might just say, you know what do I got to lose? Let me just continue on as a dictator for the last 7-8 years of my life at best. But I think we might see him come to the table. It's going to be it's going to be real tough for him to maintain his hard line now that Trump shut him down.
Interesting. Well, we'll all be watching. Take care of South Florida until I see you again there. Thanks for being with us, John.